So I'm here for Asheville. It's the first day of the workshops today. Still in my hotel at the minute and going to be on my way through to the workshops very soon. But I wanted to tell you just how amazing the unfolding of my journey over here has been. It was just incredible, from such a beautiful sunrise as I set off from London Heathrow and getting a window seat where I could see all of that and the beautiful views out. It was so clear. It was just a beautiful day in London. And then hadn't really spoken much to the couple that I was beside on the flight, the first flight, because I had two. But at the end of the flight, we'd got talking for some reason, and just I hadn't said anything about Abraham or manifesting or anything that I believed that way. But she said this line of this movie, everything always works out. And I was agreeing with her because she was talking about some contrast she was experiencing. I was like, yes, and was grateful at appreciating the way the conversation was moving towards something positive. And then she said, this line of this movie says, everything always works out in the end. And if it's not worked out, it's not the end. And I thought, wow, that's really beautiful. And that was just a tiny takeaway from someone who I'd been sitting next to for the last 8 hours. And then I came into Charlotte, which is where I landed, and the staff were just amazing. I guess I've been used to security personnel in the bigger airports like JFK and LAX, where it has been a bit fiercer at times, but my pre-paving of wanting to have wonderful connections with so many people on my way clearly was being answered. And so the security personnel were really amazing. They were so friendly, asking what I was doing here in Asheville, making suggestions, just having fun. And as I was going along the way, different other members of staff were more than commenting on, like drawing over the colour of my hair, which felt amazing in itself. And then I got through the first security, and then I had to make my connecting flight, and I got to my security for my second flight, and literally minutes after the one I'd just been at, and the next security guy welcomed me through, and he was like, King Charles will be proud of you. And I was like, King Charles is a bit groggy by now because it'd been a longish flight. And I was thinking, King Charles, like the King Charles Spaniel, like the dog. And then I realised what he meant. He was talking about the fact I was from England. Well, not actually from England, from the UK, from Wales. And it was just this beautiful reaching out and connection and fun. And so I got to my gate for my second flight, and this is where the amazing stuff happens. I'm sat there, and there's this couple beside me, probably in their 80s, I think. And I could hear them talking back and forth, and it turns out that they had been waiting to fly to Asheville, this last leg of their journey, since the day before. And for various reasons, they were unable to get on the flights. And they'd come from a lovely European trip that they'd done. Absolutely fantastic. She told me all about it, and it was incredible. Anyway, we had announcements that this flight on from Charlotte to Asheville was overbooked, and they were looking for 2 volunteers to step forward. And I found myself sitting there thinking, I don't really want to not be on this flight, but then that felt resistance. And I thought, if I push against something, it's not going to feel any good. And the easiest thing I can do to not push against this is to go and volunteer. And I didn't really know why I was saying it or doing it. I just felt I don't have to be in Asheville for any set time. It's fine. Yes, I've had a long flight, but lots of other people probably have too. And so I just kind of went up and asked, and they said, oh yeah, thank you very much. You'll get a credit of $100 and something, and we'll let you know if we need you. If everybody turns up and we need a volunteer, we'll let you know. And I'd kind of thought, there's 2 seats needed. Maybe that will mean this couple can get on if I am, 50% of that stepping down. Anyway, I went back to my seat, didn't think much more about it, and the couple heard that I had volunteered and what have you, and were thankful. Turns out that they didn't get on the flight, and neither did I. Now, I had been told that I would be on like an 8 o'clock flight, and the one I was hoping to be on was at like 4:20 or something. And I knew there was one in between, but apparently it was fully booked, so there was no chance of me being put on that one. I thought, okay, it's all going to work out fine. It's going to work out fine. Worst that can happen is I'm going to feel a bit tired, but that's about it. I've got I planned to have a lot of chill time anyway, so that's absolutely fine. And then I got called up by one of the members of staff, and they were like, right, okay, we need to sort out your ticket now because you kindly stepped back. And I was like, yeah, fine, okay, just tell me how this works. I've never done it before. I don't know what's involved. And they were like, oh, we're getting you on the one in between, the earlier one, because 4 seats have become available. I'm like, oh, wow. Which also meant the couple that I was hanging out with were able to get on that as well. And then he said, yeah, and we're just going to put your credit on now for you. I said, oh, thanks very much. And they were joking around and laughing and what have you. And it was just a lot of banter back and forth. And I didn't really think anything more about it. I was just like, okay, that's cool. Thought it was nice to get some credit, but didn't really think much beyond that. 100 and something is what they'd said. And I went back. He had told me the gate had changed. So I went back and told this couple, like, you're on this flight, but also the gate's changed. We need to make sure you're at the right gate so you can actually get this flight. And so we all trundled off down to the other gate, and I'm just being filled with all these amazing stories that this couple had, particularly her. She was just full of the bears that she feeds and how the mama bear comes and brings her cubs and how the raccoons come and they feed and the chipmunks. And it was just so beautiful. And to hear all the stories, and she was a professional classical pianist. She was a teacher. She had graduated from Juilliard, I think, or the equivalent in the South. And just such an abundance of just wonderful connections, which has been something that was on my list for my journey. I knew I'd had a great flight out the previous time when I came out to the Caribbean cruise, and I wanted to kind of exceed that, which I knew was perfectly possible. And then we sit in the next departure gate, and we're talking, and I'm listening to their stories and what have you. For once I'm the one being quiet and she's talking away, which was really nice. And I kind of noticed out the corner of my eye these people running to our gate, and I was like, I recognise that guy. That's Mark from the Abraham HICKS team. That's Esther's right hand man that she talks so highly about. It's like, oh wow, that's cool. So there's actually going to be Abraham HICKS team on our flight. Now, I had also put down that I would love to have other ABAs on the flight, but I never thought there would be staff. I just thought, there'd be ABA, other attendees. So that was really awesome. And then we get on the flight, and I'm sat next to the husband, as it happens, and his wife sat across the way. And I finally sit down and I look at my emails that's got the credit in it. And I see the amount, and I nearly fall off my chair, because it's not 100 and something. It's $1,125 of credit. $1,125, and they told me it'd be like 100 and something. I don't know what happened. All I know is that I am ecstatic. It just like the kind of prequel to that is that when I booked my flights for coming out here, I managed to book my long haul flight twice, both outward and return. And I kind of wanted to say it was a mistake, and I thought I'd bungled things. And then I just think, no, you know what? I had this experience, and I had been inspired by the stories of other Abrahamers not to fight for it. And I was like, well, I'd really like that money back. I'd like a refund somehow, but it was a non-refundable ticket. And I was like, I really would love that money back. And that ticket actually was more expensive than the one I ended up doing that did my entire trip. That first ticket only did part of the trip. And it was about £600. And I was like, I'd love that back somehow. And just held that desire kind of loosely, not like fraught. I was like, I'm not going to fight for it, because it would be easier for that money to come to me in another way than for me to go and fight, stand my rights and demand something, what have you. And I thought maybe I'll even just get to keep both seats on the plane, and that would be fun. I could have 2 seats. Anyway, so I get to the Heathrow, and I ask, say that this is the situation, and I get sent somewhere else. And I said to the second person, can I have both seats? And he's like, no, you can't. I was like, no, I did pay for them, Anyhow, I let it go. And he was like, you might be able to go back and get your taxes back. It'd be about $100. And I was like, okay. And I still thought, it feels like hard work, and I just don't want to really do that. And so I just got on the flight and I left it, but I kept saying to myself, I'd really like that money back. And so, of course, when this credit comes through for the same airline for almost double the amount that I was asking for, I'm like, there it is. And it was in the easiest way possible. I want to say could not have known that would happen when I offered to volunteer. I offered to volunteer because I just thought it was a way of removing resistance. I was like, even if I don't end up, being the one that gets put back, I'm removing resistance, and that felt better. And it was just such an incredible experience of like that whole full circle moment. And I was sat on the plane on my last leg to Asheville when I was reading this credit amount on my phone, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun, because I knew Mark was up the front, I thought, wouldn't it be fun if I get to tell Mark? And maybe they mention it to Esther, and this gets told in the workshop, as about, we've heard people who've wanted to go to Abraham events and then they didn't have the money, and then they were walking through a forest and found a diamond that cost however much, and were able to cash in the diamond and pay for the trip. And I'd already looked at this and thought, that's going to pay for my flights to come out to the Caribbean cruise with my partner early next year, which is already booked the cruises, and this will pay for the flights. And I get off the plane and we go to the baggage carousel, and Mark and the other member of staff were stood there, and I wanted to be respectful and I didn't want to kind of intrude, so I didn't say anything or do anything. And they collected their luggage and they disappeared off, and I didn't think anything more. And then I went out, got my luggage, and I went out to catch a cab and end up out in the parking lot. And stood there is again Mark and this member of staff, and again I didn't want to intrude, but I by that time got talking to some other woman who was there, and she wasn't a neighbour, but she was doing some other stuff, some other workshop here, some training, and so we were kind of on a similar level, and we were both looking for a cab and both struggling with our internet connection. And as we were talking and kind of waiting for our transport to turn up, I was telling her this story about the credit, and at that point Mark must have been listening to our conversation, and he kind of turned around and went, wow, you did well. And I was like, yes, so naturally, without me trying to. Her team, Esther's team, got to hear this story, which I think is just beautiful for them as well, just to hear these manifesting stories of people turning up. So I'm still really hoping that this is going to come up in the workshop today, and that somehow I'm going to be able to say, that was me, and this is the whole prequel that, I had wanted this money to come back to me, and this is how it did. And that would be really, really fun, because I'm totally gunning for a hot seat experience. So I shall have to update you on that later, but so far this is what's happened, and it's just been the most magical and amazing. Magical's the wrong word, because it's not, this is just how it's meant to unfold. And I want to say funfold. That's my new word, combining fun and unfolding, because so much of the unfolding is fun when we allow it to be. And that's what I've just been doing, pointing at things, like they say, pointing, but it's kind of more than that. For me, it's a combination between like intention setting in each segment and like allowing, and going back to what Abraham said to me in my hot seat experience, which was my last one, which was expecting to stay up to speed with what you're becoming. And so I kind of go into my segments more and more now each day saying, I want this, and of course it's going to happen because I'm successful at these things. These things always work out for me. I'm the type of person where this works, these things work out. And just that expectation that, of course, instead of going to thinking, I'm not sure about, all these doubts and questions, it's like, of course, and then just letting it happen. And I see it time and time again over this last week. It's just been amazing to go through my days with that kind of feeling and watching so many things just unfolding. I had another example again around money on Wednesday this week. So a few days ago now, I was going to get my hair done. I needed to pay the final installment for that, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be really nice if I knew I had £100 dropping in from my bank at some point, because they were just kindly giving us this because they'd had a good year. And I knew it was kind of within about a month's time, window, 30-day window. And I just thought, wouldn't it be nice if that dropped in and paid for my hair? And within, about half an hour, I looked at my phone and there was this text message saying that they'd put it in. And it more than covered, it was probably close to double what I needed to pay for the rest of my hair. And just seeing stuff like that happen over and over again has been so much fun. It's just been like allowing things and just expecting to be up to speed with what I'm becoming. So that's my story so far on this amazing Asheville journey. Can't wait to update you as to what this day has held.